This is a record of my experience with the C185 Skyhawk from Banana Hobby. So I'm just going to go through, I haven't actually flown it yet, but I'll go through a series of concerns, questions, problems that have come up so far. So the first thing that I noticed was that this rear assembly here gets glued on permanently, and what that I guess the concern I have about that is if this rear wing gets nicked in some way, given how integrated the body is, etc., does that mean getting a whole new plane as opposed to just having to unscrew and replace the tail wings? So that was my first concern. The second thing that I noticed was that this bar over here, I don't know if you can see it, but this bar over here, which goes down through the body of the plane, was not glued in properly, but because it's epoxied, it created a severe pressure on this wing to flap one way or the other, and it likes to go to the right. So you can see even after attaching it to the servo, it wants to hover consistently to the right. Secondly, I noticed that it's billed as ready to fly, but it really isn't. I had to glue this whole rear section on here and decide whether to line up with the stickers, because the stickers are in one place, or the foam shapes. The foam shapes are in another place. So I decided to line up with the foam shapes, but that means the stickers are not quite in alignment. And then the next thing I noticed when I went to screw on this thing right here, let me see if I actually have the Allen wrench to show you, because the Allen wrench does not fit these bolts. So you can only you can put this in, and just look at that, just spinning around in there on both sides. It does not actually tighten the bolts more than in the most cavalier and loose way, because the bolts are not the right size, and I have an extensive Allen wrench set myself, so I went through all of my sizes, and every one of mine is also too big or too small. So none of these bolts here, and there's several other, and there's another set within the tail wing, can be tightened totally correctly. So that's the next thing. When I went to attach the wheels, you can see that this metal here is touching the rim, and so there's nothing really to hold these bolts on other than putting two of them and tightening them together. There's no washers or anything that come with this. As a result, when the plane goes forward, it's pretty stiff. It's the stiffest set of wheels I've seen. I don't know yet how much of a problem that'll be, but it certainly could make the difference between a smooth takeoff and landing. So far, somewhat minor issues, but still a concern. It was billed as ready to fly, but the electronics were not at all assembled. There was just a mass of wires, and that's when I started noticing discrepancies between the manual and the plane. The manual talks about doing some things that don't have to be done, like gluing in these servos. Well, all the servos appeared to be glued in. The website descriptions said I was going to get a plane without the flaps. It said the flaps would be there that could be cut out, but they wouldn't have servos because it's just a four channel plane. But it came with the flaps and the wires, and it seems like they ought to be connected. The wheel assembly is nice and strong. That's great. The motor has a different housing. It's not this plexiglass housing, it's a wood housing, and did not have to be put on. I noticed when I went to try and put the main wing together that there's a metal bar that had to kind of slide into the other bar, but there was major hardened epoxy on both sides around the rim of that metal bar, which I had to use a Sonicrafter, which is a very high frequency vibrator chipper, to get that off and not damage the rest, because using a razor blade with epoxy and stainless steel, you'd risk damaging the wings. So that was an ordeal to get that off and get that in. Then as we come to the front propeller, that was a fairly straightforward thing, but not entirely clear, because you see it goes from this: install the propeller and carefully tighten the prop screw. That's all it says, and there's a number of interesting steps that have to go on before that, which hopefully I guessed right. It says glue the head cover into place as shown. There are in fact two magnets holding the head cover into place, and both of those magnets had fallen off, and I'm presuming that those magnets are designed to replace the glue. But again, I don't really know. There's no magnets shown in the diagram right here. So do we glue it on or not? It seems better to leave the magnets, because if that bit gets damaged, hopefully that at least would be relatively easy to replace. Next we come to a very important aspect of the plane, which is that as you can see, that with these enormous wings in the kitchen and the whole tail section, this cannot fit into most cars. So in order to transport it, each of these 4 screws need to be undone, and then 4 sets of wires, since it's come with these 4 servos, have to be unplugged. None of those wires are marked. This has to be unplugged and taken apart for transportation. Well, that's somewhat what I was expecting, but then we come to a very frustrating part, which is that these screws, these bolts that the screws go into, were not in the right place. They were off by as much as 1/3 of an inch, and as a result completely did not work. And what had to happen, because there's no way to access these bolts when to put on the wings, is I had to remove these window sections. The only trouble is, because even there the guides are very loose, and after I've realigned these bolts, and the glue in the wood has started to fall off where these wood panels are at the top, they don't just slide into place easily, and these little bolts that are just punctured into the wood fall out often, which means the windows either need to be removed and re-glued every single time, or the wings need to stay on, but then how is it transported? So that was a nightmare to sort out, just spending more than 45 minutes right there messing with that. And all of that leads up to the thing that I'm particularly upset with, which is that well, if we go to the section on this is what it says for the electronics. Connect the extended wire of the aileron flaps, then install the wing struts into the wing, then screw them into the fuselage as shown. The wing struts are one of the things that don't work with the Allen wrench. And then it says, install your receiver and check the action of all controls. Be sure the throttle is in the off position before plugging your battery into the controls. That's all it says about the entire receiver, not which to turn on first, which there's absolutely nothing about how to put which wires in which way. And there's 2, 4, 6. There are 7 wires floating around in here that you have to connect in various ways and figure out how to install. Trying to work with this little receiver, these pins here were not aligned so that the last pin here could fit into the box. So I had to open up this receiver to realign that, get them in, and everything works except the throttle is completely intermittent. And there's one other thing. You can see how this antenna wire is severely pinched right at this point. This control box had a little place for the antenna to go through in the middle there, but the person that put this together had not done that, so I can't really tell whether this antenna is totally functional or not. But there's no information about what to do with this antenna wire in order to get good reception. That's just left to guesswork. So I'm there with the plane upside down over in this section of the house right here. The control for the throttle is completely intermittent. I'm turning it on, I'm turning it off, and I get these little bursts of woo, woo. Doesn't seem like as much power. It won't stay on when the throttle is all the way up. So I'm fiddling with it. There's no instructions about how to test it, what to do, is it properly wired. There are no instructions about what to do with these switches that come with it right here. So I'm fiddling around with this, trying to see what can be done. And suddenly I flip one of the switches on this thing here, and the throttle goes on full tilt and will not turn off. And unlike the initial kind of little bursts, this is 500% more powerful. It does two things. I'm kind of right here in front of the plane. It shoots downward, and you can see where it's dug into my hardwood floor, 3 millimeters, 2 inches wide, and digs out the floor. So that's $500 worth of damage minimal to this floor being sanded down, maybe $1,000. And then the other thing is it shot right into my finger, and did two major cuts before it turned off on its own with the same erratic behavior as it did turning on. I'm just removing the bandages, which need to be changed again. But this is day number 3. There's blood all over the place, where you can see a major cut here on this hand here, and where the skin has been completely removed in this whole section here. So it's been a miserable, very frustrating experience. I verified it was the receiver that's broken by switching in the receiver of a Park Zone yak, which I had. So I've actually got the Park Zone receiver in here right now, and it works perfectly with the controller. However, it is not at all clear, how these flaps and ailerons are supposed to be set up, so I haven't flown it yet. But at 2.5 hours into the project, a broken or severely damaged hardwood floor, this isn't soft wood, and a damaged finger, it is not ready to fly or even prepared for easy assembly, and the instructions are completely inadequate.